Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Flex Network. I am your host, Shane Seeley, and of course, I've got my boy, Season Long Says, aka he goes by Alan Seslowski. Alan, how you doing, brother?
That's the name I was given at birth. Can't change that one. As complicated as it is to spell. What's up, Shane? Sunday again.
Yes.
More football talk.
This is it, though, man. Like last week, we had the Super Bowl to look forward to. At this point, it's XFL. I don't know. Did you watch any of the games yesterday? Were there games yesterday? I don't even pay attention.
Yeah. There was two games yesterday, and I didn't watch, but it was just because I wasn't home, or else I totally would have watched. There's two more games on today at 2 p. and 5 p. Eastern. Specifically, the game I'm interested in is the Tampa Bay Vipers. They're coached by Mark Trestman, the former Chicago Bears coach, and there's a lot of that's where a lot of the eyeballs are going to be. He was known in the NFL as to be an offensive guru, so we'll see if that translates over. But everything I read on the XFL is that it was a success, especially with the play clock not being 45 seconds, with being 25 seconds. It was like play. So it was good.
I like that. Yeah, I mean it's for the degenerates. Did you happen to dabble in any DFS or anything like that?
No. I was checking out the betting lines and watching how the guys over at DFS Armies Beat the Bookie, now known as Sports Bet Army, were taking it. And I think I didn't dive too much into it, but we'll see what players emerge. Maybe it could be another source of fantasy after the NFL season is done. So we shall see.
Absolutely. I mean, look, degenerates like the BG gens, gamblers gamble. That's just kind of how it is. It's just kind of how it is. Yep. So, of course, once again, we are lacking our boy Flex Matt, who, I don't know, maybe he's on some island somewhere.
He's doing, I don't know. He's doing deep research. So when he comes on, he's going to have all the information about the 2020 rookies.
I know. See, that's the thing, is that we've been planning to have this this early mock rookie draft, and it keeps getting put off week after week after week. I don't know. Maybe Matt just wants to be super prepared. What can I say?
All right, cool, man. So what are we going to talk about today?
Listen, okay. So early on, you and I, we've already devolved down into our first best ball league. So I wanted to jump on here and talk a little bit about early best balls. So far, I mean, it's super early. There's maybe, like, we like to play it at MFLs, which are now called best ball 10s. I'm about 5 rounds into my draft. You're about only 2 rounds into your draft. And when I go and I look at the NFFC, they don't even have any best ball data yet in terms of ADPs, because honestly, it's these early drafts that are dictating the ADPs. So just wanted to get your thoughts on some of the early players in the early couple rounds. And then you are in a dynasty startup right now. How's that going?
Yeah, dynasty startup. It's I found this group of guys on a dynasty Facebook page, and it looks like they're all just as crazy about dynasty fantasy football as we are. So we're in round 5. It's going well. I drew pick 1 in a super flex tight end premium. So I'll post the board. Well, I posted it on Twitter, so anyone that wants to can follow it. And it's been crazy. But let's start with the best ball, because that's what you and I are doing too. We're both we're both picking from the same spot, which is kind of cool. And in best ball, we are both picking from spot 3. And Barkley and Christian McCaffrey were understandably the first 2 picks in those drafts. And we both landed on who, Shane?
I ended up with Zeke Elliott at 3.
Yeah, me too. And I debated this with the geek over DFS Army, and he was surprised at the pick. And I actually talked him into it. He's like, not Dalvin Cook, not Derrick Henry, and I said, we don't know where Derrick Henry's going to be on February 8th or whatever yesterday's date was. Dalvin Cook, there's a new new coach. Hey guys, there you go. There's Mike. He's in that
What's
league.
Going on, Michael?
What's up, Mike? Yeah, we're going to be talking about that dynasty league in just a few minutes after we talk about best ball. So Mike's tough too, man. I think Mike's a Jet fan too. Which I'm the only other Jet fan that I know of, especially looking outside of New York nowadays. But
so Michael Goff, sorry, just real quick. Yeah. So Michael Goff, he has the 4 pick in your dynasty draft, and spoiler alert, he chose Saquon Barkley. So interesting that he felt that Saquon fell to 4. So we're going to dive into that later. Yeah. But thanks for listening, Michael. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that he fell to 4 because it's super flex. So the QB is, go up there. I actually thought about Saquon at 1. But I think that Zeke Elliott represents the safest pick in best ball outside of the top 2 guys, because we know his situation, we know his role, his contract is set. It just feels Zeke Elliott's one of those guys, he's never on the injury report. He's just
Yeah.
literally he's never dinged up. You never questionable. Dalvin Cook, who would be the other consideration at pick 3. For me, or Michael Thomas, it's like there's some question marks around the QB situation or injury. So that's why Zeke felt safe. Did you feel the same way?
Look, I would have taken Zeke at 2, to be honest. And I think it's all about the situation. I mean, man, like right now, Dallas, who knows what's going to happen there? There's talks that they might franchise tag Dak Prescott. I heard just rumors yesterday that they're talking about maybe trying to trade Dak and maybe Tom Brady would go to Dallas. Like, I think they'd be absolutely insane to get rid of a guy like Dak Prescott. Realistically, though, I'm not really sure what's going to happen with Amari Cooper. The capital implications there, I could see Michael Gallup being a wide receiver 1 next year in Dallas. And that will have a ripple effect. But when it comes to Zeke Elliott, you can pretty much set your watch to him. Last year, he was sneaky good, right? He was sneaky consistent. But the problem is he didn't put up any of those 30, 40 games in a given week. And people just they love that, right? So for me right now, I would probably go CMC, Zeke, Dalvin, then Saquon, and then probably Michael Thomas at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're going to be a little lower on Saquon Barkley than the market.
Mhm.
I don't see why, if he was the consensus number 1 last year, he only got injured and he was playing dinged up when he came back. And again, we look at those. We talked about it offline that we like to look at, especially when there's either a rookie or a player that fell below expectations. What did they do the last 5 weeks of the season, last 6 weeks of the season? And Saquon finished strong. Daniel Jones in his second year, Joe Judge, the new coach there, presumably is going to be offensive minded. Let's certainly hope that they don't leave it to Jason Garrett to run the offense as the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
But I'm optimistic about Saquon. He looks generational to me. He looks like he has that LaDainian Tomlinson upside. Obviously that's huge praise, but this guy breaks runs. So, but that seems to be what is the first round of best ball. Where would the receiver? I mean, it's just the first round of best ball this year is going to be running back mania more than ever.
I agree.
Is Derrick Henry worth a first round pick in PPR leagues in best ball, not even knowing where he's going to sign?
I think he is, absolutely. I mean, it's all about what are your choices here, right? So I think what's interesting is that so in my draft, Derrick Henry went pick 11, and I think that probably was a little bit low if I was picking around the end of the round. Wide receivers who went ahead of him, Michael Thomas. I mean, he went at pick 4, which totally makes sense. Tyreek Hill at pick 6 seemed a little high for me. When Dalvin Cook fell to 7, I would have absolutely taken Dalvin Cook over a guy like Tyreek Hill. And then Aaron Jones went at 8, Joe Mixon went at 9, and then Chris Godwin went at pick 10, followed by Derrick Henry at 11. So I feel like some of those guys, I would have probably taken Derrick Henry ahead of them. The question is where is Derrick Henry going to end up? Apparently he's asking for at least Zeke level money. And, I just look at David Johnson, I look at Todd Gurley, and it's tough for these teams to dish out that much money. I mean, we just talked about Dallas. Like, they're in such a situation now where they might not be able to sign Amari Cooper for what he's probably going to demand on the market unless he maybe takes a discount. And that's because of the Zeke Elliott contract. And I don't know. I mean, it's gonna be tough. Like, if Derrick Henry ends up back in Tennessee, he's probably a top 5, top 6 pick to me, just because how they're going to use him. You assume that if a team pays him, that they were going to use him, but then I look at Le'Veon Bell and the Jets, and you just never know for sure. But for me, I would probably take him in the top 6 or 7. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're talking about Derrick Henry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what's it called? My board was similar to yours. The only main differences in the best ball that I participated in was Joe Mixon was pick 5. I like that. He went ahead of Dalvin Cook, which I could see it. Joe Mixon really, again, had a disappointing season. If you drafted him last year, you probably missed the playoffs because by the time he came on at the end of the season, it was a little too late. But they're also getting, it's been an underreported story, their first round offensive lineman that went out in the preseason, they're getting him back. So they're getting an extra first round pick lineman this year, in addition to presumably an upgraded quarterback with Joe Burrow, if that is the route they go. So I think Mixon is certainly worth the top 6 consideration. Would you take, when you're looking at Mixon versus Henry in a PPR, do you have a lean either way on those guys? Because I think that's going to be a real decision point for some people.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much assuming that the Bengals are going to take Joe Burrow, right? Like that's a
Well,
guarantee.
no, it's not a guarantee, but I think that it is probably the favorite to happen. I mean, think about this time 2 years ago. Nobody had Baker Mayfield marked for the first pick overall. It was Darnold. It was even Rosen was being considered as the number one overall pick.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield, up until about a week, 3-4 days before, nobody was talking about him. So listen, as the process moves on, Burrow might not be. I mean, you just don't know. But at this point, I
Yeah.
think it's that's the assumption we're operating under.
I mean, who else could it realistically be? Maybe like assuming again quarterback would
Tua.
it be
It could be
Herbert, Tua.
Tua.
I don't think. I mean, a big part of it. And listen, so the Roster Watch show, obviously that's a show that we're very loyal to. We love Roster Watch. They were talking about it on their podcast this week about why they always go to Indy and why that's where the combine always is. And it's about really it's where all the medical machines and all that information comes from, and that's one of the major parts of the combine. And I think that where Tua ends up going is going to be largely dependent on how that hip is looking going into the draft, right? I mean, the problem is that it was a major injury, and if it's something that's going to impact him for a long time, I think that that's going to affect his draft capital. And
yeah, I'm presuming, by the way, you were giggling because Jennifer made a comment in the comment section saying, "Hi guys, here's one of those ladies." Because last week, for those who are tuning in this week, I made the comment that I didn't think that we had a large female audience, but Shane, rightfully so, pointed out quite a few loyal subscribers, including Jennifer, who might be one of the most loyal subscribers. So thank you again for that comment. Sorry, I interrupted your thought about the combine.
No, I mean, it's really, what it's going to come down to if Tua does end up going early in the NFL draft, it's about health. It's going to be big because we know what he can do, right? Like, there's no question over there.
This is what I told you last week about Tua. Okay, by all accounts, he's going to be healthy by the time to throw in April. Now, I'm operating under the assumption he is. And if you think about this, and the Redskins have picked 2. Let's say Joe Burrow goes number 1 to the Cincinnati Bengals. Okay, no problem. Number 2, everyone's marked Chase Young, the defensive end for Ohio State, to go to the Washington Redskins. What? No way. If you, even if you picked Haskins the year before, pick 15, 16, wherever he went, look what the Cardinals did with Josh Rosen the year before. They picked him at pick 10. They discarded him for the better QB. To win in the NFL, we all know you need a star QB. I don't remember anyone saying tank for Haskins. It was tank for Tua. And if Tua's there at number 2, you need to take him or trade the pick. You would get 3 first-rounders, 2 first-rounders, and 3 second-rounders. And if you don't take that package, you're saying that Chase Young is worth that huge package. Tua will be there. I think a team will move. If the Redskins foolishly pass on him, I think a team will move up to take him and also if it's a team in the top 5, maybe, I think the Redskins are silly to not take Tua or to not sell the pick. I don't think you take Chase Young, even if he's an all-time great defensive end.
What about Justin Herbert? Where does he sit there for you? Is he 3? Is he 4? Is he off your list?
QB or overall?
QB, just QB. We're talking now.
I mean, right now he's the favorite to be the 3rd QB, but things get jumbled. Jordan Love is in the mix. There's a couple other QBs that could shoot up the board, but Herbert had a good Senior Bowl. He's got the size. He looks like a player ready to play in the NFL. The combine will be, for some reason, not for some reason, but for good reason, does dictate draft position. Things move, but I could see. I mean, I don't think Justin Herbert will last past the first 10 picks. I mean, Carolina, Chargers. I mean, somebody could move up and get him.
Well, Herbert. I mean, his biggest criticism isn't just like he's the kind of guy who performs in practice. He's going to be. I think he's going to absolutely show out at the combine. But the general criticism for Herbert has been just his pocket presence, right? Like it just being a leader on the field and, in the huddle going and commanding these men in the NFL. That's going to be the biggest critique to him. I mean, you can go like and psychoanalyze it. I think he's like a middle child or something like that. So, like I was listening to some interviews on NFL Network during the Senior Bowl, and they were interviewing him, and it's something that he's aware of, right? And that's an important thing because that's something that you can work on. You can work on poise, right? But as we say, when the bullets are flying, sometimes you just default back to the norm, aka like Jameis Winston, And the question is, can Herbert step up? I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, NFL teams will make that determination, and ultimately, some leaders are quiet. Some leaders
yeah,
lead with their play. Some do what Drew Brees does and yell "ha ha hoo hoo" in a huddle. I mean,
yeah,
I think ultimately, if a player performs, their teammates will follow. All right,
absolutely. Okay,
yeah, just shifting back over to best ball for a minute. I have a couple questions for you.
sure.
All right. A player that you and I are going to be way higher on the market than, and hopefully, actually not hopefully, people join us is running back Austin Eckler at the Chargers.
Yes.
When we first did this podcast a couple weeks ago, I told you I did a sanity check because I had Eckler as a top 7 overall best ball pick, and I looked at Mike Clay's rankings on ESPN, who has been just he has a good track record with projections, and he had Eckler as like the 36 overall player. I disagree. Eckler was a top 3 running back. The guy had almost 1,000 yards receiving, 92 catches last year. Everyone's always saying, what if they add another running back? I mean, I don't think that matters. I mean, I really don't think that matters. Eckler's role is secure. He looks like literally the best pass catching running back in the NFL. Are you?
Yeah.
If you want a running back, are you okay? Here's a better question. You're as high as on Eckler I am. DeAndre Hopkins or Austin Eckler when you're around pick 10 or 11?
Ooh, you would choose DeAndre Hopkins.
Like for good reason, because you like him.
Yeah, man, that's tough. Realistically, like I've been looking at it, and so much of our draft strategy comes from these best balls and understanding how players fall, where they're going to end up going. So right now it's the fun time. And to be honest, I mean, so full disclosure here, I'm in round 5. I started 4 running backs early on because frankly, like the value fell to me, and I really like that 5, 6, 7th round wide receiver value. And especially in a best ball format, I'm going to hammer some of these running backs early and frankly wait on the wide receivers. I ended up getting Deebo Samuel in the 5th round. Some of the guys I had him over were DJ Chark, Tyler Lockett. For me, it was between him and Lockett. But I think that Metcalf is going to take a bit of a step forward this year. So that volume hog that Lockett has had in past seasons, I don't think is going to continue, which is why I ended up going with Deebo. And because of that, I would at least consider taking Eckler ahead of DeAndre Hopkins. But I don't know. So DeAndre Hopkins fell to 2.3 in this draft, and I feel like that's a little low on him. Right around the turn, I probably would still take DeAndre Hopkins over Chris Godwin just because of the situation. He's still young. I think he's going to be 27, 28 going into next season, and he's still got those elite hands, and he's got Deshaun Watson, and that matters. We still don't really know exactly what's going to be happening in Tampa. I would probably lean Hopkins over Eckler, but honestly, if I had that choice, because I'm going to be doing a lot of these drafts, I might flip-flop it, right? Even at the top, like a Saquon over an Elliott, those are the things you kind of play with as you go through multiple drafts. That's tough.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and that's a reasonable take. I just saw a comment from our guy Mike in the in the Facebook who said the only thing about Eckler, this is Mike talking, his quote is, who's going to throw on the ball? Rivers really went deep last year. That's why Mike Williams is going off now. I think that's exactly the point. I think that they're comfortable. I mean, first of all, a lot of Eckler's catches were running back catches. They weren't like full-on blown routes, although some of them were. Eckler took a lot of those short passes long. It's a good safety route now. There's been talk already, Jay Glazer, who's been a trustworthy source of NFL intel, that the Chargers are moving on from Philip Rivers. And my guess is there is going to be a plan. That's a safe presumption. And even if that plan is Justin Herbert, if that plan is to start with Tyrod Taylor and let Herbert grow into the role, I think that a pass-catching running back with the elite skills that Austin Eckler has is safe. I would say I would set the under-over of his catches at 78. I think that anytime that you get 70-plus catches from a running back, you can presume that he's going to get 750 to 900 yards, maybe 1,000. He was close this year. That is gold in these PPR leagues. And I think Mike's point about who's going to throw him the ball, Rivers looked kind of done to me. I mean, there might be a place for him in the NFL, but these non-mobile QBs that lack some accuracy, they're just a dying breed. I think that now the standard is going to be you need to be mobile. So I think a player like Austin Eckler is one of the safer bets. The market disagrees with us, Shane. So we
Yeah.
shall see. You and I will be fighting for him in the draft rooms, especially in our auction leagues.
Well,
Steve Ryman. Hey, good comment there, Steve. What's up, Steve?
going on, Steve?
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to get Eckler at the end of the second round of my draft.
Yeah, we got to stop talking about him because our following here, Shane, they're going to catch on and beat us to him. But we don't mind. We don't mind.
No,
We're analysts first, players second.
Yeah, we'll go with that. We'll go with that now. Okay, so just Austin Eckler last year, guys, he had 92 receptions on 108 targets. That's hyper efficient. 993 yards, like you said, just slightly close to that 1,000-yard mark.
It's like having Jarvis Landry on your team and a running back.
And he got 8 touchdowns. So we can maybe guess that there's going to be some regression just because you're right. We don't know who's going to be throwing the ball. But hypothetically, I mean, the Tom Brady talk's still out there. Austin Eckler is better than James White, and James White is efficient.
Now, Austin Eckler is an elite running back in the modern NFL, in my view. I think he's being totally undervalued. The guy, the Chargers were better when Melvin Gordon came back. They were worse. Eckler is someone that can run between the tackles. I would say that he's probably what we thought Duke Johnson was going to be. I would say he's not that far off. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is an all-time beast, as we saw in these last couple things, but Austin Eckler is in that conversation.
Yeah, Steve says Eckler is a steal. Totally agree. If you can get Eckler at the end of the second round, I think that's absolutely ridiculous.
It's not happening. It's not happening. He's going to go on the turn by the time it's all said and done.
I think so too.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Devin Singletary? I got him at 3.3.
Yeah, now here, I like Devin Singletary. The only problem with Singletary is I think that he's never going to be a double-digit touchdown guy, and I love him. I think he's a great running back, but it's like the Carolina running backs would peak Cam Newton. When they get down to the 2-3 yard line, a lot of times they're going with Josh Allen on the sneak or some sort of option run.
Yep.
So I think that that caps Devin Singletary's upside. So in the third round where he's going, it's perfectly fine. But what's stopping Devin Singletary from being a first round pick is that you're going to see a lot of 6 to 9 touchdown seasons, never 14 or 18 touchdowns. And if they draft a big wide receiver, as Trashman said in Roster Watch podcast this week, that if they draft just say, a 6'3" receiver and they have Dawson Knox, who's also prolific in the red zone.
Love Dawson Knox.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think that Singletary will have a lot of yards, a good amount of catches, but always Singletary digit touchdowns.
All right, I'm going to hold you to that. I think he's got the opportunity. I think that Buffalo is going to they're on the up and up, and I think he's got the opportunity to be putting up 8 to 10 touchdowns next year.
It looks like the room agrees, by the way, that Brady going to LA would be good for Eckler. I agree.
Yes.
All right.
I want to talk a little bit about your dynasty draft here.
All right, we're switching over to the Boardwalk Empire Dynasty Draft. And just for the people out there who have never played in an Empire League, I'll briefly explain what it is. So we've all, anyone watching this podcast knows what Dynasty Fantasy Football is, has played in Dynasty Fantasy Football leagues. But an Empire League takes approximately half of the entry fee. Let's just use $100 budget. And half of the entry fee is in the current year's pot. So there's a first, second, and third place. And half of it goes into the Empire pot. And when a team wins the championship twice in a row, they take home the Empire pot. If no team wins twice in a row, that Empire pot rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls over. It could be thousands of dollars by the time somebody claims it. Now, Shane, when somebody wins the Empire pot, the draft resets, and we throw all the players back in, and we start again. Beautiful thing, huh?
That's really cool. I really like that idea. Sometimes you just need a redo with your dynasty teams, right?
Yeah.
And after a team is dominant for 2 years in a row, I like that you kind of just mix it up. The guy gets paid or gal gets paid.
Oh yeah.
And then you just mix it up. I like that. I like the fresh start.
Mm-hmm. All right. So dynasty startup. I mean, the first round in Superflex is one of the most agonizing things to do. It's like, how do you attack Superflex dynasty startup? I mean, do you like the QBs in the front? I know that you had told me you disagreed with my pick of Patrick Mahomes at 1.1. Where would you have gone in the dynasty startup at pick 1, Shane?
Okay, I'm just going to take one step back here, Al. Okay, just in general about dynasty leagues. At this point, I'm well, three. Unfortunately, one of them folded this year, but two of them are single QB, and then the one that we're in together is obviously super flex. At this point in Dynasty, like QB is pointless in a single QB league. So for those who are starting up new Dynasty leagues or joining Dynasty leagues, do yourselves a favor. If you're not in a super flex league, or even if you are, it's by far the best, because then you can actually have these conversations of, it's not just running back early in round one. It's you have to make these tough decisions. Are you going to go QB? A guy like Patrick Mahomes is going to be relevant potentially for the next decade plus, or are you going to go for a strong guy like CMC, who might be elite for the next 2 to 3 years, but after that there's naturally going to be a decline. So let's go here. So you chose Patrick Mahomes. We were chatting a lot before your draft even started about this, after we found that you had the 101. I said I would still go CMC, and really what it comes down to is, even in a super flex league, I feel like the difference that those elite running backs can make any given week really outweighs just the difference that one of those QBs can make. And the reason for that is just like QB position is still very, very deep. And I just feel like, I mean, I'm looking here at
Not as
some of the
deep.
guys.
Not as deep as you think. It's super flex. Like you see,
Yeah.
you're looking at the draft board now. I'm waiting to pick 6.12 right now. We're in the 6th round, and
Yep.
QB is, there's some guys out there, but there's no sure bets anymore. I mean, no guys with long-term job security or week to week. The guys that are going to get you those 18 points a week. There's the QBs remaining by the 5th round in Superflex are guys that can have those single-digit QB weeks, which are killers in Superflex.
Well, so looking at your draft board here, through the 5th round, this is when some of like those value QBs went off the board, like Matt Stafford, who I think he's going to be a value next year. He went at 5.8. Matt Ryan fell to 5.11. That's just obviously age. Maybe people think that Julio Jones, his productivity might start to decline in the next couple of years. But then Jameis went at 5.12. To me, that's late for Jameis.
Yeah, I agree. He was the guy I was targeting. Was foolishly thinking he would come back to me at 6.12. I almost took him, but where I picked on the turn in the Boardwalk Empire Dynasty League was I took 2 young receivers with Catch, TMC, and Debo.
Let's just go through your draft real quick here then.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea. So Patrick Mahomes, look, we're splitting hairs, right? Like let's call a spade, right? Like we're splitting hairs.
At pick 1.1, you're deciding how you want to build your team. I'm gonna get one of the 3 best players in the entire draft.
Yeah,
I'm saying,
absolutely.
okay, hey, I'm gonna build this way, and I chose to build around the QB.
Okay, so let's talk about that real quick. I know we were going to talk about your team, but this is exciting, so I want to talk about it. Talk about like the top 3 players in all of fantasy football right now for Superflex. It's a QB. Pick your poison between Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, and then a running back probably between CMC
and
Barkley. Like that's it, right?
So there's a big 4. There's 4 guys that can.
Old.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm saying in Dynasty startup, I think that there's a big 4. There's certainly a big 4, and I see that Michael wrote that's why he chose pick 4 in the comments here, because he's so nutless, Mike, that he didn't want to make the decision. So by the way, if you listen to this podcast, we insult our listeners, just so you know. So get used to that. If you're gonna get in the chat, we're gonna insult you. You're in the locker room with us, and we're gonna bite. So,
and especially if you're in our friggin' fantasy leagues.
Oh yeah,
that just goes without saying.
Yeah. So Mike was nutless and picked pick 4. And he, because he didn't want to make a decision. So
how did that work? Did you guys get to choose your draft slots?
It was Kentucky Derby style. Basically, they drew a draft order, and that was not the draft order they randomized. That was the order in which you can make your draft selection.
Oh, I love that.
So Mike drew pick 1, so he chose 4. Okay. And then the guy who runs the league, Tom, who, by the way, by all accounts, my first opinions he's an elite commissioner. You and I have both been in a bunch of leagues where you just have these cockamamie commissioners. He's buttoned up, Shane. He rivals you for being one of the best commissioners, and you are the best commissioner I've ever come across. Yeah, no, you're buttoned up. You think of it all. But Tom is right there. He had the second Kentucky Derby spot. He chose 12. Now, the key to this league for our listeners that are not that are listening for the first time about me describe this league is the rookie draft, which is going to be after the vet draft, goes reverse order. So by picking pick 12 in the vet draft, Tom's going to own pick 1.
That's interesting. So
in
I'm
the rookie
looking at
draft.
Tom's draft, and he actually is the one who got Jameis Winston. He went Jameis Winston at 512, and then
Mhm.
Daniel Jones at 6.1. You're probably going to guess he's going to go like Taylor, Swift, or Burrow at that first 101 pick.
Yeah,
I would assume.
he's been yelling in the chat room that he likes Burrow and Superflex, but I think he's bluffing personally. I think he
He,
wants to get rid of that pick because I want nothing to do with Joe Burrow, and I
oh,
think, yeah,
he's
I
also got
told you,
Dak actually. Yeah,
what?
so he got Dak actually. I see that there was a trade that he had. So in the third round, he got Dak.
Yeah.
So he's sitting with 3 QBs. I could see him trying to trade out of that. That's
Well,
clever.
that's why.
That's
That's what I'm
really
saying.
smart.
If
Yeah.
he truly believed in Burrow as well, he wouldn't be drafting 3 QBs.
Yeah.
It's quite obvious. But
We're
anyway,
on to you, Tom. We're
that's
on to you,
right.
buddy.
And we're on to all these guys. These
Yeah.
guys are sneaky and maniacal
I
too. So
love it.
that's why I'm
Okay.
bad.
So
All right.
let's digress. Let's go
Yep.
back to talking about your team. So I'm going to go through here. So you have Patrick Mahomes at 1. You went DJ Moore, Miles Sanders at the 2-3 turn.
That was controversial, by the way. Not the DJ Moore pick, because I did
Yeah.
take DJ Moore over some of the more established wide receivers like Juju Smith-Schuster. I took some heat for that. I passed on Odell Beckham and even Julio to take DJ Moore. I have DJ Moore as a top 5 or 6 wide receiver in PPR. The guy's 22 years old. Did it with very poor QB play. Sky's the limit for him, and more or less the Miles Sanders pick was controversial that I passed on Aaron Jones and Leonard Fournette. I'm curious of your opinion, Shane. You're always my sanity check on this stuff.
Yeah.
Miles Sanders, 22 years old, ascending. Last 5 games were phenomenal. 20 carries, 5 catches in each of those games. Would you have taken Aaron Jones over him? And it's reasonable to say you would.
Okay, so here's where I stand on Miles Sanders. Love the prospect. He was obviously a top 2 discussion after the draft between him and Josh Jacobs, like we're talking again in Dynasty. The reason I was never as high on Miles Sanders is because bottom line, I do not trust the Philadelphia offense to say that he's going to be used in a workhorse role. And the argument is that, well, they've never had a workhorse running back to use, and therefore they're not like, when Miles Sanders gets into that opportunity, they're going to use them. So we saw it at the end of last year, going back to what you said earlier, that you really try to look at the usage in the last 5 or 6 games of the season, because at that point, they're not rookies, right? Like they're now NFL players. They know what they're getting themselves into. They know what it takes to prepare. I'm still a little bit worried because Jordan Howard was injured through the second half of that season. And, I'm still a little bit worried about the usage. However, when you compare it to Aaron Jones, I mean, we saw Aaron Jones was hyper productive last year.
Now think about Aaron Jones's first 2 years in the league. They weren't as good as Miles Sanders' first year.
No,
and Aaron Jones progressed to that level.
Absolutely, and I think that's the thing, right? Like Aaron Jones, we were saying from the very beginning that he needs to have volume. Get out of here with Jamal Williams. We don't want that.
Stop there for a second, and because you just hit on something so important, I want to put an underline under what you just said. What's more threatening to the running back we're talking about here? Is Jamal Williams more of a threat to Aaron Jones, or is Jordan Howard more of a threat to Miles Sanders? Just that one data point. Which one is the bigger threat?
No, you're right, Jamal Williams, because we've seen it. Jamal Williams has been productive. I mean, he was a guy last year that, late in best balls, he was the guy I was targeting because in that offense, he can be productive. And we saw it this year. We saw it, like he had his spurts when he was healthy. He was getting some touches. He would just totally vulture Aaron Jones, which as an Aaron Jones owner in a bunch of leagues this year was extremely painful. But Miles Sanders, man, I mean, at his age, he's 3 years younger. Philadelphia is a good offense. They were crippled with injuries last year. They're going to be better next year. And I think Miles Sanders, I don't hate that pick, man. I really don't hate that pick. He's electric. And Aaron Jones is not going to put up 19 touchdowns next year. Like, it's not going to happen, people. It doesn't happen 2 years in a row.
Well, and again, you're right. I agree with you. But let me give a little reason why, and it's obvious to most people, is that we all know that Davante Adams makes his money in the end zone, right? I mean, that's what makes Davante Adams a valuable receiver, and he was hurt for a long stretch last year, so a lot of those touchdowns went to Aaron Jones. I have a question for you. All right, now you're talking about. I don't want to deviate too much here but Davante Adams, how many 1,000-yard seasons or more has he had in his career?
I'm gonna go with 3.
1.
One. Wow. Okay.
One 1,000-yard season. So how is he a first round pick? How is he a first round dynasty pick? Because he does what, Shane? He catches the ball in that little painted area called the end zone, right? So he was out for a long stretch of time. He's presumably going to be healthy. You can't predict injury, but obviously, that is going to hurt Aaron Jones's touchdown upside. And again, Aaron Jones is a great player who deserves to be a first round best ball pick, who deserves to be a third round dynasty pick. I am just I like the direction Miles Sanders is going, and I think there's more question marks around Aaron Jones in dynasty than there is around Miles Sanders. But I could be wrong. I could learn to regret that.
You went young. I like that. I like that about your team. You went young. So you went
maybe too young.
maybe. Yeah. I don't know. In dynasty, I mean, when guys have shown that they can be productive when they're young, is there such a thing as too young? So Miles Sanders, I'm okay with that pick. I don't have a problem with it. You passed on Juju. You passed on guys like Aaron Jones, Leonard Fournette, AJ Brown, Odell. I'm okay with it. You've got your running back one on your team. So then at the 4-5 turn, you went Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel, two guys who we absolutely love at the Flex Network. Deebo Samuel, you and I, we just text about this guy. We get so excited about him, and he's going to be up and coming. One of the things that we did talk about offline was essentially just his floor going into next year. I mean, he is going to be the ideal wide receiver 2 for you, simply because they're going to continue to use him in running plays. And so I think he's going to have that pretty solid floor where he's probably touching the ball 5-6 times a game. And the biggest reason that running back is consistent, and that in fantasy is the reason you want to get solid running backs, is because they get defined touches more often than not, right? When a workhorse back's going to get between 15 to 18 touches, you want that guy on your team. And the reason that wide receiver can be so inconsistent from one week to the next is that they might be getting some targets, but if they don't actually physically have the ball in their hand, there's no guarantee that you're going to score fantasy points. So the fact that Deebo Samuel is involved also in the running game, I mean, guys, we saw it in the Super Bowl when they were using him out of the backfield. San Francisco was beating Kansas City, and that wasn't by mistake. It's because, hey, Deebo's the best player on our team. We want to get this guy involved any way that we can. So I love it. I love Deebo there. I think you're going to
I mean, Deebo Samuel, everyone loves Deebo Samuel, right? I mean, it's
I guess.
And I think
didn't like that. People come on. When Emmanuel Sanders got traded to San Fran, you can't tell me that the industry wasn't like, oh, here we go, Deebo.
Well, I mean, think about this. Dante Pettis was a healthy scratch for the Super Bowl. People coming into last season had him rated above Deebo Samuel. I mean, even if Emmanuel Sanders stays there, which I think he's an unrestricted free agent, I'm pretty sure of that. I think that's fine. I mean, they're presumably going to add. They're getting who was the rookie? It was Jalen Hurd, right? No, what was
Jalen Hurd was hurt.
Right, he'll be back. He's an end zone guy, and like you said, I like what I saw from San Francisco. As any reasonable person saw what they did with Deebo in the Super Bowl. They featured him. They featured him as one of their guys, and I think Deebo Samuel will end up being around wide receiver 15 on the year. He'll be and that's I don't think he'll ever be like wide receiver 5, but I think that he'll always be somewhere between wide receiver 9 and wide receiver 17 for his career. Give you those 14, 15 fantasy points a game, 10 when it's not a good game, 25 when he lights it up. And in the 5th round of your dynasty draft, he is 24. He's not 22, but there's no better guy I think that fills that role. All right, Shane, we're coming near the end here, so. Talk about a guy. So we're talking about the Boardwalk Empire draft. Who do you just look around the board there real quick? And because this is, probably a good blueprint for most dynasty startup drafts. What surprised you most that dropped? What player, as you look at the board, surprised you the most that fell and it just screams value? I have one in my head, but I'm curious to yours just by taking a glance at the board.
I would say I'm not surprised that this player fell, but I think that he's an absolute value. And he was actually the last pick on the board, and that was Allen Robinson.
Yeah,
Allen Robinson just went at 6.4. He's 26 years old. Typically, wide receivers are the most productive between 25 to 28, roughly, right? So he's still in that age apex. And I know that he's on the Bears, guys, but this is a guy that he put up. Let's see here. I'm looking. How many fantasy points did he put up here? So he's a wide receiver 8 in PPR last year. Wide receiver 8. And that matters. This
Yeah,
guy's
but
fallen to the 6th round.
yeah, no, he was the guy I was targeting if it came back.
Oh yeah,
But with Allen Robinson, he has made a career out of producing with bad QB play, with Mitch
yes,
Trubisky, with Blake Bortles, and then even at Penn State, with who was the guy the Jets picked in the second round, the QB that
Mason
was at
Rudolph.
Penn State. Who was it?
Who you talking about, Mason?
No. So
Or
the
no?
Jets drafted a QB in the
Oh,
second
Jets.
round
Excuse me.
that went to Penn State that played with Allen Robinson. His name escapes me for the moment here. I'm sure Mike would know his name right off the bat. But yeah, even at Penn State, he had bad QB play. So I think that's a really I think that's a really smart pick for a guy who fell. The guy who I was looking at I didn't understand why Amari Cooper fell to the middle of the 4th round. I mean, honestly, I thought in one QB leagues he would be like an end of the 1st round dynasty pick. He's still really good, and he's going to be with Dak Prescott. And I guess there's some questions around the long-term viability, but that was the guy that D. Heggs got in the middle of the 4th
Yes.
round, and I thought that one. There's a lot of sharp players in this league. We're going to post the board in the notes here, Shane, just so people can take a look at it.
Yes.
But all right, man, we did it again. We
Yes.
talked a little dynasty, a little best ball. The time just flies, right, when we're talking about football.
Oh God, we said we're going to do 30 minutes max, and we're already at going on 41 minutes. We can talk about this for hours, but I just want to close one point on Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
The reason he probably fell, he's inconsistent, and he might not be a Dallas Cowboy next year. So people are uncertain about him.
Yeah. Christian Hackenberg, as John branded so astutely.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So he was the QB at Penn State where, again, the point was Allen Robinson makes a living producing with bad QBs.
Could you imagine
if he was on Arizona with Kyler Murray?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so.
Like what?
Anyway.
Like, could he be like, he's maybe not as good as Julio, but could he have had a similar career arc as Julio?
Sure.
If he had a guy like Matt Ryan, like, man, it's what could have been. What could have been.
Yep.
All right, Al. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you like what you're hearing, please like, subscribe. You can find us on we're going to put this on a podcast feed. Tell your friends. You can
subscribe to the Flex Network. The Flex.
Yes.
For those listening on the audio, it's the Flex Network. And then also, if you don't mind me just saying, please subscribe to the DFS Army.
Of course.
Audio feed as well, video feeds, YouTube page. We put out tons of content. Hopefully, Shane, you'll come back on the DFS Army podcast and talk a little season. The Geek and I are going to
keep saying that. Just where's my invite, Al?
Okay, go. Yeah, well, we haven't done too much off-season content yet. We've been focusing on the Beat the Bookie, which is now Sports Bet Army for all you degenerate gamblers out there and that want to fix leaks in your game. We talk a lot of gambling, all that kind of stuff with John Alicia. Shane, give your plug real quick. I'll give mine, and then we'll get out of here.
Listen, guys, we love the support. Thank you so much for the support. Follow us on Twitter at the Flex Network 1. You can follow me at Shane or Sealy, at Sealy_Shane. And you can follow our boy Alan at Alan Seslowski on Twitter.
AlanSeslowsky. Nice and easy for those of you that are
easy.
Yeah.
And we're going to be, guys, like, pay attention to your feeds. We're going to be producing content pretty much on a weekly basis here. There is no rest in the off season. This is when it gets exciting. We're going to be talking best ball. We're going to be talking rookies. Hey, man, the Flex Network, we do it right.
All right. Until next time, Shane. I'll see you next Sunday.
See you next Sunday. This is the Flex Network.